Thank you very much. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, George, for putting this together. And thank you for everybody out here that's come to hear the story. I was excited to come to Phoenix for this, and so far, a very interesting event. I look forward to the rest of the afternoon and tomorrow. I'm Steve Sterman. I'm a fixed income portfolio manager at the University of California Office of the President. I work in the Office of the Chief Investment Officer that manages $90 billion across pension, endowment, and working capital assets across the university's 10 campuses, 5 major medical centers, and 3 national labs. And it's a little different for us because we're not strictly an endowment. We have many stakeholders that own the money that we manage. You know, there are different buckets of money. But as an investment office, we think we have to be consistent, certainly with our beliefs and our core beliefs and values. So anything that we do across the 3 distinct buckets of money that we have. And just to talk a little bit first about the university and how the University of California, the campuses, has been a leader in sustainability in its own right, really running faster and earlier in the race than the investment office. We have some people from our campuses that are attending, and I know Wendell Braze, who's the Vice Chancellor at UC Irvine, has been leading a sustainability charge across campuses, in particular at UC Irvine, for a number of years. And it's a very important and critical goal of President Napolitano's to be carbon neutral by 2025. And Wendell and others across the campuses have done a lot at UC Irvine and other schools. I'll give you Irvine as an example. When I went and visited Irvine a couple of months ago, that school since 1990 has doubled in student population, yet its emissions today is down below where they were in 1990. And Wendell and his crew on campus has been able to reduce energy use in many of the major lab buildings by over 50%. So there's a lot that can be done on campus, and there's a lot that can be done in the investment portfolio, and we're trying to catch up as investors. So how did this come about? I think 2 things that were a spark for us. Number one, we had a change in administration in our office with a new chief investment officer that came in the spring, Jagdeep Bashir, and he came from Canada at AIMCO, which had a sustainability policy, and as a core belief of his, he believes in long-term sustainable investments. So we had already been thinking about it in the office, and I do not have a long history at the university myself either, but I know the tone in the office started to change, the conversation started to change. At the very same time, Stanford University came out with their announcement about divesting from certain coal assets. And very soon thereafter, we realized we need to have, a response to this. We need to think about these issues. We've got to make a recommendation, come up with a policy, and implement that policy. The request to divest from fossil fuels had been coming from the students for 1, 2, 3 years. And I think as the investment office, we were historically saying that we're investors, not divestors. We're focused solely on return, and we're not thinking about some of the other issues that the students were bringing up. So we had blinders on around the issue, as I've described it before. And so now what are we doing? Well, since the spring, we're trying to move from thinking about it, what are our core beliefs, How does that translate into policy? And then how do we take that policy and implement it throughout our investment process, not for show, but in reality, make everybody in the office believe that as a core, as a core belief, and really think it through in our investment decisions. I would say one thing that's important is leadership from the top. And we have that, number one, from President Napolitano, from a campus-wide system, and number two, from our CIO, from Jagdeep. And we've got to, as an office, push that down and really make everyone understand the importance of it. So let me walk you through the history a little bit since June, when we put together a task force on sustainability to really respond to the students' requests to divest from fossil fuels. So what did we do? The president announced a task force. I assisted the task force on gathering data in the portfolio and trying to help as much as I could, along with others in our office. But that task force obviously had to consist of a lot of different stakeholders, and we had students, faculty, regents, and external advisors on that task force. And there was healthy debate, lively debate, a lot of different opinions as to what we should do. But I think that it coalesced around a handful of things. Number one, if we divest, what do we divest and how much could that potentially cost us directly or indirectly in transaction costs and reinvestment costs and potentially lost income or lost return, number one. So we looked at that, and at the end of the day, we determined there may be some costs, but they're probably not meaningful enough to sway your decision one way or another. Your decision really has to be based on, what's the right step to take. Costs wouldn't necessarily be the driver on that. And then on the divestment debate, where do we draw the line? That was, if we divest from coal, should we divest from utilities that buy coal? Should we own auto stocks? Should we own, airline stocks? Does divestment move the needle on climate change? We're all in agreement that there is climate change, and that's a pressing issue. But will divestment move that needle, or will investment in solutions move that needle even greater? And then what can we do to look at other issues that might come up? Because the University of California has a lot of stakeholders with a lot of issues that they're concerned about. Although fossil-free UC is the loudest voice right now, there are a lot of other voices. And we came to the conclusion that we really have to integrate environmental, social, and governance issues into our investment policy, into our investment practice. And while investors do fundamental research and they think a lot about those issues, we realize that it would be important to spell it out, to have a policy, and really think about, okay, what do we think about when we think about environmental, social, governance? What are we looking at? And then how do we proceed? So with just 2 minutes left, I'll tell you what we're doing to move that forward along. So we've gone from barely on the radar to conflict, agreement to take action, and we're developing investment policy strategy right now. And since September, we've been really engaging and learning, going to events like this, seeing what other people are doing. I've had conversations with people around the world that we view as leaders in sustainable investing. We've joined PRI, Ceres, and CDP. We think that's important. We don't want to do that just to have it on our stationery. We want to be involved in those organizations. And there are a couple of initiatives in PRI that we're going to be involved in. Work that they're doing that we're going to be a part of and support for over the course of the next year in some different work they're doing. So, and we're continue to engage with our stakeholders, and we're continuing to look at leading policies and say, what are people doing that we're not doing? And that's what we have to do. What are they not doing that we think we maybe should be doing? And then how do we implement that? So we're engaging, we're learning, we're also recruiting. I'm in the process of trying to find a director of sustainability because we want to have someone that has the responsibility in the office for doing that. And so we'll have a small team to do it. And then we will bring as we develop these thoughts, we'll turn them into policy. We'll get it approved by the regents, and then we have to carry it out. We have to engage with, have a discussion with our external managers, and it's a discussion. What are they doing? How do they think about it? How can they do more if they're not doing anything? And what can we learn from them if they're doing quite a bit? And then eventually work that into our selection process. We've got to look at our portfolio through the lens and policy that we create and say, is this the way we're supposed to be positioned? And can we do things differently? Around that, I think we'll probably involve some on-campus experts around doing some research on some companies and some on industries and saying, hey, are there places that we can be or we can't be to do that, to engage, and just continue the process. So I don't want to take up any more time, but I will be here. I'm happy to discuss further what we're doing. Sure.